Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland. So this video is going to be about coronavirus and how it's getting much worse in some places and rather better in others. Why? When I say it's getting better, often it's still going up, but it's going up arithmetically, not exponentially. Other countries, it's scarcely spreading at all. The Russian government claims that they've only got 300 cases. The Chinese have said they've had not a single additional infection for the past 3 days. I don't believe that at all. I think there might be a little bit of truth that it's not spreading very much, but come on, in a country of 1.4 billion people to have no infections at all, I thought surely no lockdown is that effectual. Even the people policing the lockdown, or the doctors and nurses, are treating it. The United Kingdom, 3 doctors have contracted it. And that's one of the things that's slightly reassuring, is it's not that easy to catch. Not want to be blasé about it, because these patients, they come to doctors and nurses, they're not in hazmat suits. And then in the isolation units, perhaps they are, but initially they're not. Anyway, so we should have a rational, proportional fear of this, because it is seriously worrying. I remember saying a few days ago that in the United Kingdom only 1 in 100,000 people had it. Well, it's rather higher than that now, and it shows little sign of slowing. But this is something to try to be tranquil about. Panic never helps. To soberly reflect on it. Don't touch your face. Just can't resist it sometimes. Think about the severity of the situation. And obviously there are grave consequences if you're not sufficiently circumspect. It's a pandemic. So what is that? Pan, like as in all in ancient Greek, and demic, of the people. So it's spread throughout the world. I mean, almost every country has a case, and the majority of countries have had deaths, as opposed to an epidemic, which is limited to a certain part of the world or a certain segment of the population. This is different. It reminds me of that film Outbreak, that 1994 film. Dustin Hoffman, I can't remember who else was in it, and someone played his estranged wife. But and it was transmitted by coughing, and it's just not a joke anymore. So because it's happening, and nobody I know has got it so far. The trouble is the symptoms can take at least 2 weeks to manifest. 5 days is typical. So people might have it. For goodness sake, I might have it. Perish the thought. Touch wood for luck, and still not know. So some people are asymptomatic, and they're not seeking help, and indeed transmitting it to those in their environs. Anyway, Rand Paul, the American politicians, caught it poetic justice. Does his health insurance cover that? Or is he going to be bankrupted to pay for it? Because he's known to be a stalwart opponent of the government giving any help to the people who pay for the government. No, this is individual. But wait a second, if you get coronavirus, that impacts me, because you could give it to me. Or also, you still have ambulances in the United States, you still have emergency care. The hospital's got to stabilize your condition, then they can discharge you. But there are people going in there for routine things because they suddenly have a heart attack or whatever, or they're in a car crash, but there may not be enough doctors and nurses to deal with them, enough places, even then in intensive care, because of a coronavirus a victim. So that's why we've got to get it down. But I mean, so I'll talk about the United States in more depth later, about the Trump administration's mismanagement of this crisis. And he's used the word crisis in relation to it as well, which is overdue. You've got to fix the roof when the sun is shining, as the adage goes. Incidentally, don't infer from that I'm suggesting the United Kingdom's got it all right, or that Boris Johnson has handled this adroitly. No, there have been some slip-ups there too. So measures have been taken in some countries which would make Draco of Athens blush. Look at the lockdown in Italy, in Lombardia. Some people going out and the police are grabbing them because they say, we've got to really be severe about this. Hearing about some case on the news, some 80-year-old woman died of it, and her daughter knew that her mother was fatally ill, not allowed to visit her to say the final farewell, not permitted to be present at the funeral because they couldn't risk her travelling. Priest had never met this woman, gave her a very hasty burial. And that was that. So lacking closure. It's a story that's going to be repeated all over the world. And I know people in Spain and Switzerland who are going through this situation, being trapped in places. And the situation in Spain and Italy is terrible, but it seems to be that the rate of increase is lower. I mean, I don't have the actual statistics at my fingertips, but supposing they went up 1,000 cases one day and 1,100 the next and 1,200 the next, so it's going up, but not as the same rate. Whereas as opposed to going up 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, doubling each day. And that's the kind of thing that would sink even the most robust health system. Even you call the doctors and nurses out of retirement, you just can't cope. Not enough of anything, beds, drugs, equipment, whatever. Anyway, in the United Kingdom, here's a chilling statistic. There are only 4,000 ventilators, if I've been correctly informed, and there are already 5,700 people with coronavirus. Okay, some of those have died. About 250 of those already died. But there are other people who need ventilators for different conditions. Do you need them for emphysema? I'm not sure. And it is just the beginning. Now, okay, a few people recovered. That's that. Coronavirus is actually not terrible for some people. Have a fairly mild dose of it. I'm certainly not a doctor. Don't imagine I'm suggesting I have any background in medical sciences. And incidentally, if I get it wrong, please correct me. Some of you medical people out there can speak about these matters with perfect correctitude, so I would welcome reproof. Anyway, and coming on to what's happening in the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland, they all took serious measures sooner. England's only just getting a bit as drastic as that. And perhaps oddly, because England's got the bulk of it, like London alone, 12% of the UK population, 54% of the coronavirus deaths. I mean, England's got 83% of the UK population. I don't know what percentage of the coronavirus deaths, but it's much higher. So Scotland's got 9% of the UK population and only 3% of the deaths from coronavirus. Northern Ireland, Wales, I would suggest even less. That's partly due to population density, links to China or other countries like Italy that was severely affected bringing it in. I don't care that it's Southern People's Republic of China. I'm not anti-Chinese. Let's stop being trying to blame Cathay. It wasn't malice. Perhaps they should have taken more prompt action. But we don't want to blame everyone in China. It's unimportant. We can only deal with the situation we're in. All right, and no use trying to be furious at them now. That's completely unhelpful. We need to cooperate on this. And France was taking this very seriously indeed. Not allowing people in and out and the police patrolling the streets. And they think the United Kingdom has been too lax on this, saying, well, we'll just have a travel ban on you because, it might astonish you, there are still flights between the UK and France. The United Kingdom, there is still public transport, less frequently. I wonder if they're going to go down to a Sunday timetable through the week. I see trains and buses go by, sometimes no passengers. But all sorts of people have got to go to work. Obviously, the doctors, nurses, dentists, there are dental emergencies, people who clean hospitals, other people who work in hospitals, people who drive food around, people at warehouses, therefore, farmers perhaps. They're out in the open. Some construction work was going on the other day, maybe. Got to maintain the railways. By the way, it's a great time to shut a railway line and repair it, as they're only a fraction of the usual passengers. So power stations had to be run. The airports, therefore, pilots, air hostesses, the air traffic controllers, everything that's open has to be cleaned. Some civil servants, I don't know why they can't work from home. It's on the phone or the computer. A few public service journalists, a few politicians. They could go down to a skeleton team. And only urgent court cases, prison officers, the army, the navy, the air force, certain teachers, because the children of these frontline public sector workers have to be taught so the parents can go to work. And who does that leave? In the waterworks or sewage, we need that to be kept going. Zookeepers, or we let all the animals die. All right, so England is the most impacted within the UK. So the Prime Minister only ordered alehouses to close then, but did he have the legal authority to do so? Some of these licensed establishments were apparently still open the other day. I walked past Wetherspoons at one branch and it was closed, a notice saying closed till further notice, because he could order them, but they might not have any legal effect. So what? You say order, it's not legally binding. I'm not sure. Could he invoke any emergency legislation, Defence of the Realms Act, even though this is not a war? I'm not sure. But I've seen barbers open, and astonishingly even geriatrics going in for haircuts, and you're close to someone. So you're in their proximity, and as you're in their personal space for a prolonged period, I thought that'd be the perfect opportunity to pick up this disease. So transmissible through the breath. What is it? Is it the mucus coming out? Is it the water particles? I don't know. A cough cloud will get it. I thought sneezing is a good sign, because maybe a dry cough indicates you might have it. I thought if you sneeze, you're unlikely to. So please, I want your admonition if I'm giving out misinformation here. And so people don't take it as gospel truth what I say, because I'm not sure of the situation. There's a lot of educated guesswork on. It's developing so fast. I was speaking to a couple of nurses the other day who treated some patients and saying, we don't really know. We're making educated guesses. Anyway, so this disease may well cull much of the senior generation. Anyone with underlying respiratory conditions, smokers are more risk because it kills the people through the lungs. Seems like a ghastly way to go, asphyxiation. So they talk about prophets of doom. Well, doom is on the way to some. This is the boomer doomer, as some have called it. So I hate to deliver these Jeremy ads. Is that how I pronounce it? But we're going to see a lot more deaths. They said if we'd be lucky to get away with as few as 20,000 deaths in the United Kingdom. So it appears to me that coûte de coûte, we've got to have quarantine. As he just come in the UK, you can still get takeaways. People have got to eat. Okay, some people don't have kitchens. I'll go to the supermarket, but skipping the evening meal is helping. I want to have red wine. I live in it. Sometimes there's a dangerously high level of blood in my alcohol stream, but I thought that's bad for the immune system. Perhaps I shouldn't. Tons of fruit. Ginger helps. Well, honey, just in case I get a sore throat. What else can I do to help myself apart from locking myself in? There must be other things. Obviously, wrapping up warm, I thought, when I go out, because I don't want to get a sore throat. Would that make me more susceptible to acquiring this malady? I'm unsure. But yeah, South Korea tested loads of people and seems to have really kept it under wraps. North Korea, almost nobody allowed in and out, so they seem to have none of it. But of course, they might be talking through their arse as usual. So we can't trust what these totalitarian states are saying. States which are just run by pathological liars. Singapore, very densely populated place, not because they pullulate, but just because, well, people have moved in there as well. Only 30 miles by 20 miles north to south. And is it 5 million people? But anyway, they have to be stern about this, otherwise they would it would just spread like wildfire. And they've used a detective approach, investigated, followed the hosts, and identified them, isolated them, and they've managed to keep it down to a few hundred cases, which is a marvelous result for them and a model for the world to follow. But we're just not authoritarian states. We're not really used to doing that. We're not willing to take the firm measures. We're always a bit too compromising. Bojo's been vacillating. People say he was too equivocal about this disease earlier on. The herd immunity, will it work? I really hope so, but I don't know what the scientific data is behind it. It's a hypothesis. The trouble is, if it turns out to be a mistaken one, then it'll come at the cost of several thousand lives. So I suspect we're just at the beginning. Bojo says we can break this in 12 weeks. Perhaps right, we can break in 12 weeks. Doesn't mean we will break it in 12 weeks. We may not be that lucky. Perhaps people won't be so disciplined. He said it's got to be like a wartime spirit. You're going to have to make the sacrifice, stay in, get bored, and all the rest of it. Do press up, sit-ups in your room, stretches, and lots of other things. And the NHS working flat out. But I spoke to some nurses. They said they can't work 7 days a week. They're just not allowed to, even though they be paid extra. Well, it'd be bad for their health, I suppose. So, yeah, France has got the police and gendarmerie to keep people off the streets. The United Kingdom has got a much lower per capita rate of police, plus they're wasting time with paperwork. But maybe we'll get real about that and finally have that bonfire of regulations that is so long overdue. There seems to be sometimes fear as a friend. I wasn't scared enough about it, and now sometimes I've been petrified. Each time I see someone, I think, are you going to be the death of me? Am I going to be the death of you? I really hope not. So, and then talk to someone who likes to stoke fear, Donald J. Trump, that racist gargoyle, going on about China. It's all the fault of China. Seriously, guys. But what's that got to do with it? Yeah, so it came from Cathay. But you have to tackle the problem now, not point the finger. What good is that doing? You're trying to follow your usual tactic of misdirecting people. People should be furious at him, but instead he's managing successfully to misdirect their anger at somebody else, desperate to divert attention from his own manifold shortcomings. You're warned about this a couple of months ago. You did nothing. You fiddled whilst Rome burned. You dithered. Worse than that, saying that it was a hoax, that it did not exist, and that will spell doom for thousands of your followers who are going to carry on going to church and things, which would be seen to be the perfect place to contract this deadly disease. You shut down the pandemic unit almost as soon as you became president, which would have kept the United States in some sort of state of readiness. They would have come up with some plan much sooner. So the country was ill prepared for this, and he's been a stalwart opponent of publicly funded healthcare. So if you're a low-income person in the United States, you suspect you have it, you have to pay for it. Well, I can't afford to pay for it. Well, fuck you, we're not going to find it. So you're going to spread it to other people, and then you're not going to get treated. You could have been saved, now you're going to die. Or loads of other problems. You know, the ventilators are going to go for the rich, not the person who needs them most. So he is a mendacious, ignorant ghoul. And it would just be wonderful if he were to catch it, such schadenfreude. Death is not always something that's fit for lamentation, sometimes for rejoicing. We're all going to die, all right? It just depends when. And there's some people the world is a great deal better off without. You know, I could live without Donald J. Trump spewing hatred across the airwaves. So the US economy is going to hell in a handcart. And I suppose if they taken firm measures, timely measures, then they could have contained this. Okay, they banned some flights. I think the right thing to do. Maybe they're too late. Maybe the United Kingdom was too late. The UK as a whole, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland did quite well. England, perhaps tardy. So Trump was so often pants on fire lying about this, that there was no coronavirus when Joe Biden was talking about it a couple of months ago, despite Trump having been briefed by world experts. Or what was the other one, that the situation was under control, lie, or that insurance companies were not going to require people to pay for coronavirus treatment, just a flagrant lie, giving false hope to people. Anyway, they've been calling it the Kung flu. I know it's very droll, but that doesn't deal with the problem. How are you going to stop it spreading to people? And how are you going to save those who've already got it? So he's trying to pander to xenophobia as though that's some sort of substitute for a plan to contain and cure this disease. So nativism, that's his stock and trade. He will so often appeal to the xenophobic instincts of, I'm afraid to say, a large minority of the American populace. It never fails to astonish me that at least 40% of the American public actually trust him. This man who's just lied on a gargantuan scale, almost incessantly throughout his life. And anything to do with statistics, just making numbers up as he's going. I remember when Obama was president, about 5% unemployment, and he's going up. It's going to be 6%, 8%, blah, blah, blah. Some people say 42%. Who are these people? Never heard of anyone say that the unemployment in the United States was ever 42%, even in the Great Depression. How on earth does he have a shred of credibility? It blows my mind that anyone could be that willfully purblind, that asinine, to actually trust him. Can't you see he's just inventing the numbers as he's going? Anyway, so he wants to scapegoat the Chinese as though they're all to blame, and their government, okay, they are to blame, but let's not waste time spewing hatred at them. You should be espousing some sort of a comprehensive plan to get this under control and to help people who've got it. Italy at least quadrupling production of ventilators. Even then, that can't keep pace with the disease. And then, you know, the federal government's got only so much power. You can't abridge the freedom of religion. Does that mean you can't close churches? I'm not sure. Maybe you can appeal to them to close, but some of them won't. So those with underlying health issues, they're much more likely to die. And Seema Verma, this doctor, she's one of Trump's health advisors. She was questioned on Fox News, are there enough ventilators? Can people get tested? And she wouldn't give a straight answer. All right, she was distracting people. She was veering off on a tangent to not address the issue. And the Fox journalist asked her several times. So that is negative silence. If you don't say anything about that issue, that means you're saying no. Do we have enough ventilators? You talk about something else. That means no, you don't. Can people get tested if they need to? and then she starts talking about something else when that was the question that was posed to her. Obviously, they can't get tested. Otherwise, she would have said that they could, despite many opportunities to say so. And then ending up by arse-licking Trump, praising him to the moon because she knows that'll only redound to her career success. So another problem is a lack of paid sick leave in many states, because if you had that, then you can say, well, I have to stay at home because I'm too ill, all right, too ill to work. So when you're feeling dreadful, having to work and underperforming, therefore, and making yourself worse because you can't recover, that applies to lots of illnesses. I know you can be too generous and some people are going to abuse it, but I'd rather have that than the opposite, than people having to work when they're just a walking corpse, and then giving the disease to their colleagues and their clients. So it's the worst possible thing when it could have been limited, but oh no, it's going to be spread because some people on these minimum wage jobs, they only get paid by the hour, they don't show up, they don't get paid. They're going to spread it around. It's dreadful. I mean, these so-called Christians, ardent Christians, are the Republican Party, who seem to have no humanity, no compassion for people when they're suffering. And that's you sometimes, by the way. Some of the Republican voters, you're in this situation. And then, again, this really is staggering, how so many people will vote for their own exploitation, will vote against their own interests, are that moronic or that blinded by hatred. So, well, if we can be against the brown people, then I'll vote to make my life worse, so long as I can be against them. So if you tell me someone thousands of miles away is a danger to me, then I'll vote for you and ignore the real dangers to me. It's a bit like Alex Jones's channel, InfoWars, denying a real massacre of those Amish children several years ago and inventing a non-existent one, a Bowling Green. So Devin Nunes, that senior Republican politician, urging people to dine out. The most idiotic thing he could do. I mean, the height of irresponsibility, inciting people to pass on the disease. And the governor of Oklahoma likewise doing so with his children, and indeed posting photos on Twitter of him dining in a restaurant. What kind of leadership is that? What example is he setting? Does he want more people to die in agony? Seems like he does. So the Trumpsters are more likely to go to these churches which take a providentialist view of things, think that the Lord's going to intervene. Yeah, that really works for the snake handlers. So going out of your way to do perilous things, thinking that the Lord will save you from any hazard, even when you can see with your own eyes that repeatedly doesn't happen, that he does not intercede to save you. And I remember how in former times he smote the ungodly, when he doesn't seem to do so in the 21st century. These people are anti-reason, anti-science. They're irrational. They're like the anti-vaxxers and so on. I don't hear too much anti-vaccine rhetoric these days. People are praying for a vaccine. You honestly not going to take it? I mean, did you... Oh, goodness. How is it we got rid of smallpox? Vaccines. Why is it coming back in some places? Anyway, so this may well wipe a couple of years off life expectancy in many advanced economies. We've been privileged for a century. Here I'm in the United Kingdom, where so many medical breakthroughs were made, some of the best healthcare in the world. Germany's better, France is better, but it's high up there, right? I'm not some sort of blinkered nationalist who says, oh, my country must automatically be superior at everything. No, that's childish. But on an objective analysis of it, it is very highly rated. So not my achievement, I'm just lucky to reside here. The Republic of Ireland, we're brilliant too. But for us, death has been something that happens to other people, out of sight, out of mind, in a nursing home, in a hospital. No, go back a century or more when it's in the community, just the average person, even not a particularly old person, can be felled at any time, taken ruthlessly. So a member of your family can be stricken by this disease with unfeeling hardness. Grim death is going to come on. So watch out for the Grim Reaper. Reminds me to savor every day and don't worry too much about money. Okay, I'm so looking forward to this going to go over. I'm going to go out and spend. I can't travel. I can't go shopping. Not that I'm really into shopping. Even online shopping wouldn't be delivered. You can't go to pubs, restaurants. What can you do? What can I spend on? Yeah, just like Trump's lies about this, Trump was going to end the debt within 8 years. Wipe out national debt, which no one has ever come close to doing. He's managed to increase it by $3 trillion. Yeah, and imagine, well, if tax cuts guarantee economic growth, that should work through this as well. They might end up having to raise taxes. He's going to make medicines way cheaper, he said. A total lie. They've got more expensive in almost every case. How can people be so unutterably stupid to believe him after that? And he was going to make them far better. How? How on earth are you going to do this? What is the evidence? And yet, so many people, they place their trust in him. They put an X in the box opposite his name. It blows my mind. Anyway, a bit like his wall, we're not hearing too much about that one. The Mexico are going to pay for it. So he was really the worst equipped president to handle the situation. So that was not serendipitous. Imagine you could have had someone who was cool-headed, who could cope under pressure, like Obama. Even George W. Bush was fairly cool under fire, was willing to listen to unwelcome advice, would calmly reflect on the situation, consider what decision had to be made, come up with a clear plan, implement it. And really, I just would have less faith in Trump. I would not repose any confidence in his ability to handle a situation. He's the worst person to deal with this. He lacks the cognitive ability, the attention span, even the vocabulary to handle it. He can't even get to the end of a sentence these days. He's talking about one thing on this, I notice, and then he goes off in another direction. So he can't think straight, just like he never gives a straight answer. He doesn't have the temperament to deal with this, doesn't have empathy for people, doesn't give a damn about anyone else, including his own wives. These problems need to be examined unemotionally, and he's obviously trying to emotionalize the issue, opining that it's all China's fault. But even if that were true, how does saying that get you out of this situation? I suppose there's a certain low cunning to him, this rat in a trap. He knows that that's his only prayer in this coming election, if he can motivate sufficient fury amongst the Trumpist cohorts, get that going, and get them angry enough at Far Cathay, it's all the puzzling East, and vote for me, as though that somehow dispelled the disease, rather than actually come up with any kind of cogent plan to deal with this problem. That's me signing off, so make sure you follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, and Facebook. I'm George from Ireland. Toodaloo.